Alright, so today I am doing some maintenance on the bike. On the Fox 36, I piece ordered the seal kit, and we're going to rake this out to 170. It's at a 160 right now. Things you're going to need for doing a fork service in general is you need a seal kit for your fork. Usually you have your wipers, you have some crush washers, your O-ring, some foam rings that are going to go underneath the wipers, the oil that's dedicated to your fork. I have a 20 weight gold and the 5 weight that they require for the service. In addition, I'm going to change the air spring out. Instead of, like I said, for a 160, this is for a 170. Mine came with a lock ring. And lastly, it helps. I know I heard that you can do this without a seal driver, but this is a Fox 36 seal driver. Lastly, anytime you're working with any oils or something that requires a lot of cleanliness, a good idea to wear some gloves, have a lot of shop towels on hand, and some isopropyl alcohol really helps. This video is also going up on DARKHORSEMTB on YouTube. I figure since I do a lot of these maintenance things and little fixes and trying out different parts and whatnot, that I just would do a double post to my Instagram and post to YouTube so that people have kind of an archive in case they want to reference stuff like this. So it's gonna be up there. Might seem kind of like an obvious thing, but give your bike a good clean. That way you don't have to deal with any dirt or muck when you're working on your fork. Remove the fork from the frame, remove the caliper and the fender right there to make it easy to work on. If you don't know how to do any of that, I wouldn't recommend you trying this service. Even if you think your fork's clean, give it a good spray down with some alcohol, wipe it all off. Then next you're going to remove this air cap and note your PSI so that you can pump it back up to the amount that you had it at. But you make sure that you remove all the air because you don't want that thing to blow up like a grenade. So even spraying down and washing my bike, see this side I just cleaned off, but like even on this side there's a bunch of dirt just sitting right there. So really make sure you thoroughly clean your bike before you even start cracking this loose, because you don't want any contaminants on your fork, because it's not going to work well. So we're looking at the bottom of the fork right now. This is your damper side and your air shaft side. You're going to remove this cap right here, and this has a set screw right there. Mine's a 2mm Allen. I think it's loose. Yep, I had already loosened it up. And then you have I believe a 15mm and a 10mm. We're gonna break these loose. Don't take them off completely, but break them loose. All right, so now that they're broken loose, you see I left a little bit of threads on each one. That way what we can do now is to break away the stiction from the fork. We're going to take our socket, we're going to put it on top of this, just like if you were unscrewing it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to tap it with, hopefully you have a rubber mallet or a plastic mallet. If you don't have that, I recommend maybe like a little piece of wood against the socket top, and then tap the wood against that. That'll help you break it loose. So mine was a little stubborn, required a couple taps, but once you give it a couple taps and you feel like it broke loose a little bit, what I would recommend is that you hold from the top here like this, and put your other hand on the bridge and then pull back, and it should be able to break free after a couple taps. So at this point, you want to try to get your fork as close to the ground as possible if you have a stand like this, or just hold it over a bucket, because as soon as you pull off the fork lowers off the stanchions, you're gonna just have a bunch of oil leak out, so just be aware of that. Yeah, so if you can, just straighten out the clamp and then let the fork drain in the bucket like this. It's not a ton of oil, but it just makes it easy for cleanup. Next, just bring the lowers straight off. Once you're done draining, then we're just gonna take this guy, I'm gonna put it on the bench for now, and then we're gonna work on the air spring side of this, and then just clean this off, spray it down really good, wipe it down, and take this part. All right, now that my stanchions are all cleaned off, we're looking at the bottom of the fork again. If you don't need to service your air spring or not changing your air spring out, go ahead and just skip ahead. But we are going to be changing the air spring out, so this is what we're looking at now. And so the next step after cleaning all the oil that was in here out is there's this little snap ring. You can see it all the way across. We need to get a little flat head to push that snap ring out so we can pull the air spring out. Definitely does take a little finesse to get that thing out, but what I did was I took my flat head, very carefully put it behind it, and as soon as I got a little bit of a gap, I used the pick to guide it out. But there it is. So now that we have the snap ring off, all we're gonna do is just pull this guy out. I'm gonna have to hold the bike stand in order to get it out. And it's out, and look how disgusting that is. So yeah, I might have gone a little too long without servicing this, but got a new air spring and this one's out, and the new one. And so as you saw, my air spring was really dirty. So what I did next was I sprayed the crap out of this with some isopropyl alcohol, and I used a trick that I saw on the internet, which is to use one of these little rods that come off the blinds to close blinds. And basically I used a piece of tape like that to just tape the end, and then just wrapped it around like this, and then just shoved it in there, and then really cleaned it out. I'm gonna do like one more pass to make sure that everything's nice and clean in there, but look how dirty that is. So if you don't want to use the trick I just used for the little rod to clean it in and out, what you can do is you can come over here and remove the whole air cap and the whole air cap assembly off, and then you can go all the way through the stanchion to clean it off. But I was able to clean it pretty good just like that. So next I already greased up my new air spring, and from here I put also a little bit inside here so that it can slide pretty easy. Just gonna have to put this in. Now if you're having trouble getting your air spring in, one thing you can do is you can hold an Allen key on the air where you would put the air in. Then that way you can open up the air chamber and you're not fighting the air when you're pushing this in. Once you got this in, then you're just gonna have to put in the snap ring in this little groove. You don't have to push it in too far, just about to here, and then you put the snap ring in. All right, so now that the air spring was able to be pushed in, then you just squeeze the lock ring into place. You can do it by hand, and then just make sure you give it a good couple cycles, make sure that lock ring is in there properly, and you should be good to go. Next, what you want to focus on is removing the foam ring and the wipers from the fork. On this one, I already did it on this side. Basically, you want to take a pick underneath the wipers, take out the foam ring, and then use either a flat head, some sort of tire lever or something to get underneath here and pop off the wipers. But I'll show you what that looks like with a pick right now. So that's the foam ring. Then next you want to take a flathead or something, be very careful not to scratch the inside of it, but you would take it and you would just basically pry against this upward to take these wipers out. Moving on to lowers, make sure you give these a nice clean, same concept. Make sure you use a little rod to spray this down with isopropyl alcohol and clean the inside out on both chambers. Next thing is we're going to do the seals and the foam rings. So What you want to do at this point is come over to your workbench, and here's my seal driver. I threw one of the seals already on the driver. That's going to be inserted into the lowers to punch it in. But it looks like this. I just threw it on. I put a little bit of oil all around the wiper so it'd make it easier to drive in. Here is the foam rings that are going to be going into the lowers. I already soaked them into some 20 weight oil. This is the bag that the seal kit came in. All I did was cut it open and then just poured a little bit of oil to soak those guys in. But you can actually dip your finger in this to put around the seals and put on the lowers. So from here, I'm gonna get the driver. I'm gonna take it over to the lower. I'm gonna stand this guy up. And basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the driver, you're gonna put it right over the lower just like that. And then you're gonna use a hammer right here to drive the seal in there. After the seal is fully seated, the wiper actually, then you're gonna put the foam ring underneath it. So it's gonna be kind of hard to show this on camera, but here's the seal driver, and I already put the seal in just like that. So next I'm gonna take one of my foam rings. It's gonna be really soaked in with that oil, but I'll take the foam ring and I'm just gently gonna throw it underneath the seal ring and seat it into place. There you go, and I don't know if you can see, but one side is done. So after we've got those foam rings nice and seated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pack the inner channels of those wipers with slick oleum or slick honey, just like that. And we're ready to put these bad boys onto the stanchions. Now, one thing to make sure that you pay attention to is that when you're throwing on the stanchions to the lowers, just remember which side is your damper side and which side is your air side. In this case, my damper side is on the right side, so my fork lowers are here. I'm going to be facing them this way so that I can throw them on, but that's the next step. So when you're putting the lowers back onto the stanchions, it shouldn't take that much force when you start sliding them on. Maybe create a little stiction at first, but if you just grab the bridge here and grab the top of the fork, you should be able to just force it in a little bit. Don't forget to put your O-ring indicator back on before you put on the lowers. And then leave some space like this open so that you can throw in the oil onto your fork. In my case, I'm doing 40 cc's of 5 weight on this side and 10 cc's of 20 weight on this side. And I'm using a syringe like this. I already got 40 cc's ready to go. And I'm gonna throw this little hose into this hole right here, and then the 10 cc's on this side. All right, so we got the stanchions on, the lowers on the stanchions. We got the oil, 40 cc's on the damper side and 10 cc's on the air shaft side. We got our caps and our crush washers. So all we gotta do now is put the appropriate crush washer and cap on each side. Just thread it by hand. Make sure that it's seated properly. Oh shit! Before we go doing any tightening. There we go, the crush washer. And from here, look up your torque specifications on your manufacturer's website. Not sure what these are for the forks, but I'm gonna do that right now. But once you have these guys tightened down to the proper torque, then you just put the rebound cap on, and this should be ready to install onto your frame, and then pump it up to the proper pressure. All right, well, there it is, all assembled. I gave the whole fork a good cleaning before I put it back onto the whole assembly for the frame. I'm gonna give this a couple cycles and pump it up to the right pressure. Cycle the chambers through, make sure that I check it again, and from there, it's time to ride. So there it is. See you guys on the trails.